When it comes to deciding on video encoders, it usually helps to follow a bit of a process in terms of going through like a selection order. The first thing we tend to talk to people about is selecting which kind of input type they need for the video encoder. So is that HDMI, is that HD SDI? And that tends to narrow down the choice in terms of the product that they're looking for. The next thing that we tend to ask as well is in relation to what kind of resolution are you trying to maintain, because a lot of people need to stick to a particular resolution, whether that's SD, HD or anywhere up to 4K. So that varies. And again, the product selection kind of gets narrower the further you go down with this. Another thing which predominantly is important in the security sector is whether the encoder needs to be fully ONVIF compliant or not. Some of our products we have are partially ONVIF, but then we have a particular range which are fully ONVIF Profile S and G compliant, which for integration purposes, for things like video management software in the security industry is very important because they support particular protocols which you can control the encoder through that, so that's quite important. In terms of sort of things further from that, there are things like audio quality that you need to consider as well. So what kind of audio do you need? Do you need that to be a particular quality? Because security cameras, for example, it's very important to obviously be able to see what's going on, but the audio plays a big part in that as well. So, you know, that can be sort of one of those key factors. And then you start drilling down more into the in-depth stuff, like are there very specific requirements that you have in terms of low latency being one of the other key elements really. A lot of our clients, you know, need a low latency encoder because they need to have a minimal lag between, you know, sending the image and therefore displaying it glass to glass the other end. So, and then, you know, another factor, just as a peripheral, are things like form factor or like in UAV modules that we supply, you know, the operating temperature range. So that's when you sort of get to into the more specifics. But if you tend to follow that kind of key structure, you'll end up with the right product. On the flip side of that, obviously the encoder is sending the video and the decoder is receiving the video. So in a flipped about kind of way, you have to take into consideration the output as opposed to the input with an encoder. So majoritatively, we tend to find HDMI is one of the most important or the key kind of connections, because most monitors and, you know, screens have HDMI connections these days. But then there are things like HD SDI and all those things. The other thing to consider, which is a big factor in terms of decoders, is how you want to be able to view those video streams. So in a lot of cases with decoders, the viewing options are very important in terms of deciding on the product. So do you just need to see one image on the screen, or do you need to see multiple images, or how do you want to be able to control that? If it's just simply a view only, or whether you need to be able to have some kind of control back to the actual source of that video. And that then leads on to, you know, do you need your decoder to be fully ONVIF compliant, or does it need to have serial data control, you know? And the ONVIF and the serial data allow you to control either the camera or the encoder at the other end of it, back at the encoder source. So that's kind of quite an important part in deciding which decoder to go for. And then again, we go down into sort of more of the, you know, do you need it to be low latency? And if it is low latency, you know, the decoder element is probably the most important part in terms of deciding on your low latency sort of coupling. So if that is the case, then we have specific products that we recommend to work together to achieve that low latency. And then again, it all boils down to form factor. You know, how big do you need it? How small do you need it? Does it need to be a miniature version to work in a drone-based application, or is it, you know, does it need to operate within a certain temperature? And all of those kind of little smaller things come further down the line.